What's up, Grosser? Happy Monday. How is everyone doing? As I was setting up, I want to give a big shout out to Anne for gifting 10 memberships. Welcome, Elijah, Savvy's aunt, Tina, Priester, Ali Dew, Kyle, Matthew, Dusty, Wendy, and Delea Lux, Gunner Girl. Some new ones, some returning to the Wolf Pack. So, guys, hearts for Anne if you haven't done so, and welcome all the new and returning Wolf Pack members. Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate that. Matthew, what is up? Tammy, Gunner Girl, Wendy, Kyle, Bernadette is in the house. Beth, Bearclaw, how's it going? Chris Barber, Lisa Boo, Joanne, Nerd Report in the house. Jay Brimble, how's it going? Thanks again, Anne. Guys, while we wait for people to trickle in, how was your weekend? Did you guys do anything interesting? Watch any crazy movies? Do anything cool? While we wait for people to trickle in for a few more minutes. Carol, how's it going? If you guys are wondering when, like myself, has been wondering when Terrifier 3 was going to get a digital streaming premiere date, which will be VOD. Wait no further. I'm probably going to wait for it to come on a streaming service, but for those of you that like to purchase movies, shock horror hit Terrifier 3 gets digital streaming premiere date. It beat out Joker, Filet Adieu. I don't know if it's probably one of the highest grossing horror films. I am not sure, but it did beat out Joker. But Joker was a big flop and disappointment. I did not get to see either of them because I'm kind of like the girl that likes to watch movies on the couch. Terrifier 3, the shock horror thrill featuring Art the Clown that had a monster opening in theaters in October is coming soon to streaming. Find out when and where you could watch it at home. Terrifier 3 opened in theaters on October 11th and surprisingly knocked Joker Filet Adieu out of the top spot at the domestic box office after the DC movie was in theaters for a week. The third film in the Terrifier series is once again written and directed by Damien Leone, stars David Howard Thornton as the murderous Art the Clown. There's also, believe it or not, a music video by Ice Nine Kills that has Art the Clown. I'm surprised that they allowed it on YouTube, but during the MTV days, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have showed that video. But if you guys are into Ice Nine Kills, check it out. It is on YouTube. You could check out Art the Clown in his element. Jose Mangan, if you guys listen to Sirius XM, he's in it. Which I got a chance to see the other day because I saw it there and I was like, oh. It's actually a kind of cool music video. The long line for Terrifier 3 reads, after surviving Art the Clown's Halloween massacre, Sienna Lauren Lavera, which was in the second one, and her brother, who was also in the second one, are struggling to rebuild their shattered lives. As the holiday season approaches, they try to embrace the Christmas spirit and leave the horrors of the past behind. According to When to Stream, Terrifier 3 is expected to debut on digital streaming via premium video on demand on Tuesday, November 26th. While When the Stream reports are typically accurate, the streaming tracker noted that the film's distributor, Cineverse, has not announced or confirmed the PVOD release date for Terrifier 3, and the date is subject to change. When I Googled it, it also had said that date as well, so it's probably going to be somewhere around that to start off the Christmas season because it does take place during Christmas season. And thank you, Carols. And always, Skeledeck is somewhere in this background. If you guys just let me know at the end of the stream and I reveal his location. If you're new to the stream and do not know what the F Skeledeck is, give me a second here. He is located in the upper left-hand corner, or might be your upper right-hand corner. That is what he looks like, and I hide him in the background no matter what studio I am in. And just remind me because I will forget, and I have, and I'm like, oh. Also, Bernadette is over there on my Twitch. If you haven't followed, if you prefer Twitch, I'm also streaming simultaneously to Twitch on Grayson Report as well. If you want to follow me there. Gene Rick, how's it going? Bernadette goes, I think everything beat out Joker too. Bernadette, we're kind of putting on a hold to Penguin, so I'm looking forward to that. Please, no spoilers. But if you guys haven't caught Penguin, which is on Max, it is from Robert Pattinson's Batman. Penguin is played by Colin Farrell. He does an amazing job. It's kind of sad that he is connected with Robert Pattinson's Batman. That movie too was like 3 hours long. I felt like it didn't need to be 3 hours long, but that's another story. Colin Farrell does an amazing job, as well as his co-star, which I believe her name is Kristen. Hold on, let me look. If you haven't checked that out, it's amazing. It is on Max. If you have it, Kristen Malati, she does an amazing job as Sophia Falcone. Every time I see her, I'm like, yes. Both of them. I mean, it's amazing. So if you guys haven't checked it out, it is on Max again. If you have it, and the series, I believed, I don't know if it finished. It probably finished by now, because we have put it on hold. But check it out. Bernadette goes, I won't give spoilers. Thank you, Bernadette. I appreciate that. Wendy got to watch the behind the scenes. That is super cool. Gene Rick goes, Lisa always has the best headlines. Thank you, Gene Rick. I appreciate that. Matthew got distracted and didn't know what time it was. Matthew, how dare you? No, I'm just kidding. Jay Brimble's asking, is there a mystery guest by the pumpkin? That is Michael Myers as a kid. When he killed his sister, if that's what you're looking at. There's also, on the other side of the pumpkin, there's an alien. And then the masks. Oh my God. Before I get into it, whose sleep schedule? I know in Arizona, you guys are lucky you do not have to fall back. But for those of you that had to, whose sleep schedule and eating schedule, you name it, is all messed up. I know mine has been. I know yesterday I was tired as hell. It's been a while since I felt like that. Today I noticed that my eating schedule is all messed up. Like, I'm not hungry. I'm like super starving in the morning, but I'm not hungry for the rest of the day, so it's annoying. Tammy goes, me, Lisa Boo goes, messes me up totally. Wendy woke up early. Carol is off a little bit, but not bad. Beth was an hour early all day. It messes me up. Bernadette finds Penguin kind of hot. I don't know, maybe you're thinking about, I mean, I don't find him hot, but I mean, I guess they built his character so much, so I'm like, I don't want anything to happen to him, even though he's kind of like a bad guy. So but I don't find him hot. But I do feel for him. Like, you're like, don't do anything to him. Like, oh my gosh. All right, guys. Have any of you heard of the Axeman in New Orleans? This occurred in the 1900s or the late 1910s. Something I never heard of. I am big on can't even talk today. Serial killers. This one's no different. I have never heard of them. Thought it was kind of interesting. I always felt like true crime was always hand in hand with horror. And I do find some of the older cases fascinating. Joanne goes no. Tammy goes no. So this is the grisly crimes of the Axeman of New Orleans, the vicious serial killer who targeted Italian grocers. I've always wanted New Orleans is on my bucket list. I always wanted to go there. It's I don't know, because it is the land of voodoo, mystery, hauntings. I've always just wanted to go there. Gene Rick goes, can't wait to find out who the Axeman is. Jay Brimble goes no. And thank you for dropping by. I appreciate that. And have a good night, Anne. Thank you for dropping in. In the late 1910s, a mysterious serial killer known as the Axeman of New Orleans terrorized the city, breaking into homes and brutally attacking about a dozen people, often with their own axes. So this is a map of New Orleans back in 1910. This is the locations of attacks by the Axeman himself. It looks like he did, according to this map, holy crap, there's 16? 16, according to this map, it looks like. On March 18th, 1919, the streets of New Orleans were filled with music. People flooded into crowded jazz bars while makeshift jazz bands cropped up in homes across the city, frantically playing into the early hours of the morning without cessation. Why is it's what the Axeman requested? What? Really? From May 1918 to October of 1919, a mysterious serial killer known as the Axeman of New Orleans terrorized the Louisiana city, viciously murdering about half a dozen people and injuring several others. The assailant broke into his victims' homes in the dead of night by chiseling a panel off of their back door. Then he crept into their bedrooms and attacked them, often with their own axes. So, when a letter supposedly written by the Axeman of New Orleans demanded that the city play jazz music or else face its wrath, or his wrath, I should say, New Orleans terrified residents obliged. No one was unalived on the infamous night of jazz, and to this day, no one knows who was behind the New Orleans Axeman attacks. So, he was never caught. The New Orleans Axeman murder begins on May 23rd of 1918. An Italian grocer named Joseph Maggio and his wife Catherine was viciously attacked while they slept in their uptown New Orleans home. The assailant entered their room in the middle of the night, the couple's throat with a razor and hacked them with an axe as they lay in their bed. Inside the home, which doubled as a grocery store, New Orleans police discovered the bloody clothes of the killer. It appeared that he had changed into fresh clothing before exiting the scene. While the attacker seemed to just have taken about $50 from the Maggios, and he had left behind other cash and jewelry that had been left out in plain sight, leading police to rule out robbery as his motive. Investigators also discovered a bloody razor on neighboring lawns and soon learned that it belonged to Joseph Maggio's brother, or Maggio's, Andrew, who lived next door. Andrew Maggio, who owned a barber shop nearby, explained to the police that he had recently brought the razor home for repairs. The killer, Andrew suggested, had likely stolen the razor from his property. Andrew had also been the one to discover Joseph and Catherine's bodies after he allegedly heard the couple moaning through the walls, and police zeroed in on him as the prime suspect. Well, of course, because his blade was used. However, Andrew repeatedly insisted he had nothing to do with the murders, and police could not find any evidence that he was responsible. The case went cold, but the New Orleans Axeman's bloody rampage was far from over. So, this is the home of the Magios, the first confirmed victims of the Axemen of New Orleans. They are pictured here. This is during the Victorian era. Kind of a cool place. It was a grocery, a bar, and then I'm assuming they lived behind it. That's kind of cool. On June 27th, 1918, another grocer named Louis Bessemer and his mistress, Harriet Lowe, was attacked in the apartment connected to Bessemer's store. Bessemer had been struck by an axe in his right temple. Lowe, whose injuries were far more severe, was struck over her left ear. Miraculously, the couple survived the attack, and in the ensuing investigation, Bessemer claimed that the axeman had been a biracial man. Lowe had a very different story, however. She had been partially paralyzed during the attack, and after undergoing surgery to correct it, she tragically died on August 5th of 1918, but not before she had the chance to allegedly set their record straight. While on her deathbed, Lowe claimed her attacker had been none other than Bessemer himself. Bessemer served 9 months in prison before he was ultimately acquitted of the crimes, while police saying there was not enough evidence to convict him. Once again, investigators had reached a dead end. The next alleged New Orleans Axeman incident occurred on the night of August 5th of 1918 when an unknown assailant attacked a pregnant woman named Anna Schneider in her bed, hitting her over the head with a bedside table lamp. Thankfully, Schneider survived and had her baby days later. However, she could not recall any details that might help identify her attacker. On August 10th of 1918, the Axeman in New Orleans attacked a barber named Joseph Romano, brutally bashing him over the head. Romano died from his injuries 2 days after the attack. The assailant had abandoned his axe in Romano's backyard and fled the scene, but not before Romano's 2 nieces caught a glimpse of him. According to the girls, he was a large, dark-skinned man dressed in a dark suit and a hat. Bernadette goes, I love how they used him in American Horror Story Coven, one of my favorite seasons. Wendy goes, if you're not a psychopath, just makes you wonder, like, with this, not to have an axe at your house. But Wendy has one. On March 10th of 1919, the New Orleans Axemen brutally attacked the entire Cortamiglia family in their home in Gretna, Louisiana, a suburb of New Orleans. Both Charles Cortamiglia, a grocer, and his wife Rosie survived, albeit with serious wounds. Tragically, their 2-year-old daughter Mary was not so lucky. That is sad. So again, this is the picture of their home, and kind of I guess a picture of how they were found. The next attack occurred on August 10th, 1919. Steve Boca, also a grocer, was attacked in his home with an axe. He survived the attack, but like Schneider, he couldn't remember the incident. Then on September 3rd of the same year, 19-year-old Sarah Lawman was attacked with an axe while she slept. She too survived the attack. The last known attack linked to the Axeman in New Orleans came on October 27th, 1919. That night, Esther Pepitone awoke to discover that her husband, Mike, had been murdered. She saw the assailant fleeing the scene, but did not get a good look at him. The night that the Axemen forced jazz music to fill the streets of New Orleans, on March 16th of 1919, only a few days after the attack on the Cortamiglia family, the New Orleans Times Picayune published a letter they'd received from someone claiming to be the Axeman in New Orleans. As reported by Country Road magazine, in the letter, the Axeman declared that any New Orleans resident who didn't play jazz music on March 18th, the eve of St. Joseph's Day, would get the axe. Esteemed mortal, There have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible. Even as the ether that surrounds your earth, I am not a human being, but a spirit and a fell demon from hottest hell. I am what your Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come again and claim other victims. I alone know who they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 o'clock earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to the people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be sparred in whose house a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then so much the better for the people. One thing is certain, that is some for those persons who do not jazz it on Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Whoa, that is a crazy letter. Gene Rick, thank you for that super sticker. Hearts for Gene Rick, and it is the fitness pair giving a fist bump. Thank you, Gene Rick. I appreciate that. Chris goes, Coven was my second favorite after Hotel. Gotta love the monster. Actually, I like the Murder House. I think the Murder House was the best. Loved Hotel, obviously, because it was filmed at the Cecil. And Lady Gaga was in it. She was amazing in it. Coven was amazing. Freak Show was amazing. I think after those, that's when it started going downhill for me. I like the one, I forgot the one with Joseph Fiennes in it. I like that one too. But I felt like once it got into like Apocalypse, I think which one was Apocalypse or something like that, that's when it kind of started going downhill for me. And then they went to American Horror Stories, where it was like different stories. That one was like, I didn't like that one. Panic over the Axeman of New Orleans was such the people took this letter seriously. That night, frenzied music filled the air as terrified New Orleans residents took to jazz clubs or played music in their homes, hoping to keep the Axeman at bay. In the end, no one was killed on that night of jazz, and many have since suggested that the letter was a hoax created by a cruel prankster. Just imagine the guy that wrote that letter, how much power he had over the entire city. That's crazy. When you read the letter, this is a person who's an educated person. He has a classical allusion to Tartarus, the deepest pit of hell in Greek mythology. Historian Miriam Davis told Country Road magazine. It reads like it was written by a fraternity or something, and the person who is the axeman, from the description we've got of him, he's a working man. He's a working class, and I just don't think a working class person at that time would have been educated enough to write that letter. So some even suspect the letter was an elaborate marketing ploy. In the wake of the March 18th scare, a New Orleans jazz musician named Joseph John Davila released a song called The Axeman's Jazz, Don't Scare Me, Papa, claiming he'd written it during the night of jazz. The song was a hit, and some have suggested that Davila had written the Axeman of New Orleans letter to boost the song's popularity. Possible suspects and motives behind the New Orleans Axeman murders. Part of the reason police had such a hard time catching the New Orleans Axeman was that witnesses to the murders rarely got a good glimpse of the attacker. Some describe the Axeman as dark-skinned, large, or heavy-set, according to Legends of America. Given this vague profile, authorities were focused to cast a wide net for suspects. Investigators questioned dozens of possible culprits, including victims, neighbors, and family members. Even some of the alleged victims themselves were suspected of being the Axeman of New Orleans, as in the case of Louis Bessemer. I don't know why I want to say Louis. Still, police never uncovered enough evidence to convict anyone of the murders. The Axeman remained at large. Over the years, a number of theories have emerged as to why the Axeman of New Orleans turned to murder in the first place. One theory suggested that the attacks were racially motivated, given that the New Orleans Axeman appeared to be targeting Italian grocers and their families. Others have suggested that the attacks were mafia-related. However, some contemporary researchers believe the Axeman of New Orleans could have been a man named Joseph Mumfree, who is, this isn't, This is Mike and Esther Pepitone or Pepitone. I think it's more Pepitone. Pepitone. The former victims of the New Orleans Axeman, pictured here. In 1907, long before the attacks, Mumfrey had reportedly been arrested for trying to uh, bang bang an Italian grocery. I was going to say a huge pew pew, but that wouldn't have made sense. According to some researchers, after Mike Pepitone's murder, his widow Esther remarried a man who was reportedly in business with Mumfrey and moved with her new husband to LA. Soon after, however, Esther's second husband mysteriously disappeared. Mumfrey then reportedly entered Esther's home and tried to rob her at Pew Point, threatening to kill her like I did your husband. Instead, Esther managed to reach for her own pew pew and unalived Mumfrey first. Later, she told authorities that she recognized Mumfrey as the man who had killed her husband. But despite this apparent connection to the case, no one has ever been able to find concrete evidence that Mumfrey was the New Orleans Axeman. To this day, the serial killer's identity remains a mystery. While the case has gone cold, the story of the Axeman of New Orleans is certainly not forgotten. The jazz-loving killer continues to haunt popular culture to this day, appearing as a character in hit television shows like what Bernadette has mentioned, American Horror Story Coven, and he was in the originals? Dang, I used to watch that. I used to watch both, the originals as well. Dang, okay, because the originals takes place in New Orleans, but I don't remember them talking about the Axeman. Guys, what do you think of the Axeman? That he was never caught. No one ever identified him. And he had that much control over the city to get every single person playing jazz for one night. That is crazy. Bernadette goes after season 5 of American Horror Story all downhill. Yeah, it kind of just went, and I just stopped watching it. I know the most recent one had Kim Kardashian in it, and I have not seen it. Gene Rico, super scary. Catch this guy. Yeah. Bernadette goes, he was never caught because the witches took him out. Wendy goes crazy boss mode. Kara goes, it was crazy and weird. It's crazy to think that someone got away with doing all of that and they were never able to catch him. I mean, there were speculations. They thought that they caught their man, but they didn't. Unfortunately, the poor gentleman that spent 9 months in prison for it didn't do it. But that is crazy when you think of it. And obviously, after that day, he never striked again. So he just disappeared. Maybe it was his thing to see if he could get away with it, and he did. So he was like, "Oh, I'm getting away with it. Why would I continue doing it?" I don't know. Maybe it was something like that. I have no idea. Bernadette goes, "That's just like Jack the Ripper, never caught." Exactly. They have speculations on who he might be as well, but it's not. There's no like concrete evidence of who it is. Heather, whatever, what is up? So I found this kind of cool article about the final girl. The final girl was made, I think, no, because there was a final girl in a movie before that, but I think it became more prominent with Halloween, if I'm not mistaken, with Laurie Strode and Jamie Lee Curtis. But I found this kind of cool article talking about the history and the transformation of the final girl. Gotta love your final girls. It's usually the last girl in a horror movie that survives. Leonore, what is up? The trope carries implications of strength, perseverance, and resilience, but where did the final girl come from and how has she changed? This article is a bit was written in 2019, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Obviously, the girl pictured here is from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was released, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was released in 1974, if I'm not mistaken. The final girl is an iconic horror trope embodied by strong female characteristics able to survive any bloody scenario thrown at her. These women have made the term final girl a badge of honor. The two words, which are emblazoned on t-shirts and stamped on enamel pins, also on, I've seen it on beanies, form a self-imposed title that many in the horror community use to describe themselves. It is a phrase that carries implications of strength, perseverance, and resilience, but where did the final girl come from and how has she changed? Also, there's the Scream Queen as well. Film scholar Carol Clover coined the term in her 1987 essay, Her Body Himself, Gender in the Slasher Film, in which she extensively writes about the slasher subgenre of horror, which is one of my favorites, and its key parts. She details the characteristics of the slasher, the place where each murder happens, the weapons, and the sole survivor, whom she calls the final girl. Clover describes the character as such. She is the one who encounters the bodies of her friends and perceives the full extent of the preceding horror and of her own peril, who's chased, cornered, wounded, whom we see scream, stagger, fall, rise, and scream again. The character is a woman who must go through hell and back, screaming, running. I take that too as a scream queen as well. Running and stabbing her way to survival. She is a virginal figure, but most slowly transformed into a monster herself to defeat the murderer. Because it's usually a woman that you would never think would fight back or something. You wouldn't think she would fight back. Because she's kind of like the girl next door, but then in flight or fright mode, you see her become like this badass person defeating Michael Myers in the case of Laurie Strode, or escaping the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, stuff like that. Importantly, this character, despite her gender, must be relatable to the core audience of the slasher film, young men. She is not sexual and is rather shy around boys. Her name and appearance can be described as boyish. She's not totally feminine or masculine. The final girl is almost without gender. One of the most iconic final girls is Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis in John Carpenter's 1978 slasher Halloween. She is the nerd of her friend group, shown prioritizing her studies and babysitting over hanging out with her friends on Halloween night. While her friends are having fun and getting murdered for it, Laurie is babysitting her young neighbors. Her studious nature makes her the perfect final girl who is both resourceful and virginal. The infamous villain Michael Myers doesn't stand a chance. It also put Jamie Lee Curtis on the map. She finds her best. I think Jamie Lee Curtis was 19 when this movie, when she was filming it. She finds her best friend and the girl's boyfriend across the street, stabbed to death by Myers after unleashing the typical blood-curdling scream characteristic of the final girl. She goes up against Myers for personal survival and saves the kids she's babysitting. She arms herself with a massive knife, a philiac weapon, which must be thrust into its victims, or thrust, not thirst. Don't ask me why I saw thirst. Thrust into her victim, or into its victims, and turns to violence and self-defense. Then there's Sally Sally Hardesty, played by Marilyn Burns. I never knew her name. Of Toby Hopper's 1974 film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Sally is one of the first examples of the final girl, and like Laurie Strode, she is portrayed as neither masculine nor feminine, a non-sexual being. I never looked at it this way. I don't know about you guys. I've never looked at it this way. Who served as a foil to her more scantily dressed friend. She is shown taking care of paraplegic brother and trying to figure out if their grandfather's grave was vandalized. As Sally encounters Leatherface and his deranged cannibal family, she is the sole survivor of her friend group, and most endure their strange torture. Just as she thinks she has escaped them, she is brought right back by a truck driver working for the family. From there, she's tied to a chair at Leatherface's dinner table. She screams and cries at the demented group of men as they laugh and scream right back at her. Sally is a final girl who must go through absolute hell to earn her survival. The final girl is still a prevalent figure in horror film. However, she has become much more complex and nuanced, no longer just a two-dimensional foil to the villain. Horror directors have taken audience expectations of the iconic female characters and subverted them in increasingly fascinating and creative ways. They try to look past virginity and male identification with the character to create a commentary on traditional gender oh my god, I can't read today. Representation in the genre. The final girl also has grown into a figure of many subgenres. No longer is she confined to the slasher, but can be seen in supernatural films, possession films, and more. Wes Craven's 1996 meta slasher Scream is a film all about plainly stating the rules of a slasher and subverting them. The biggest subversion is with its final girl, Sydney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. Sure, she's a little nerdy, doesn't really party, and loves to wear black, but she also has sex with her boyfriend, and the first time on screen, sex is usually a death sentence in slasher films, but in Scream, that's true. That is very true. But in Scream, the act isn't demonetized, which is a big step for the genre. Sydney is able to lose her virginity, be resourceful, and survive until the very end, and though through an entire franchise. I think it's hilarious how they describe that. That's why I'm laughing. A more recent example in a film that is by no means a slasher is Thomason's Anna Taylor-Joy in Robert Eggers' 2015 feature debut, The Witch. That movie was a what the F is going on type of movie. The only thing I actually liked out of The Witch was Black Phillip. I have a bunch of Funko Pops of Black Phillip. It would seem unusual to apply the term to a film about witchcraft in colonial New England. However, Thomason's survival and endurance throughout the film mark a new kind of final girl who may not be facing off against a giant mass killer, but she is still a survivor. She is a final girl who represents reclaiming agency. Thomason shares an important quality with the typical final girl. I guess she is in that film. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, the character's accused of witchcraft. Because I haven't seen that movie in a while. She is virginal. How many times did they say virginal in this article? As expected by her family and faith, marked by her stack white clothing. However, despite her petty, she is still accused of witchcraft by her family, while an actual witch is wreaking havoc from deep in the forest. She must endure her mother's verbal abuse as she's ridiculed. Thomason, I think that's an awesome name, no, Thomason, for her delivery. And oh my, devilry. I was going to say, I thought that was a typo for a second. And she must watch her family die off one by one. When she is the last one standing and makes a deal with Satan, she sheds her white clothing and enters the forest to join a coven. She's able to experience freedom from her religion and her overbearing family. She is finally in charge of her own body. While horror has evolved throughout the decades and society's monsters have changed faces, the final girl has remained constant. She has experienced a few changes along the way, but ultimately she has remained the iconic female character that unites the audience in cheering for her victory. The final girl has been the perfect figure to articulate the gender politics of the horror genre as she reflects societal ideas of what a female character should be and tries to break through them. Knife in hand, she has slashed through countless villains and monsters to prove that the final girl almost always comes on top. So there's a little history. That really did seem like it came out of a textbook for a theater class. But yes, there is the history of the final girl and how she transformed. And they had to emphasize virginity in it. Or Kyle goes, "You mean witch?" Or he spells the witch with 2 V's. All right, guys, if you've been watching me for some time, you know I am a huge fan of the X-Files. I haven't watched X-Files in a long time. I should be ashamed of myself. But I am a huge fan of the X-Files. When I was in high school, every Friday night that came along, I had to be in front of the TV watching. When it went to Sunday night, I believe. When it went to Sunday night, I was still in front of the TV watching. I remember recording because at the time we had tapes. That's how ancient I am. I remember recording on tapes every episode, and I would watch it throughout the week. I knew the lines. I knew I came in kind of late to the X-Files. I came in season 2. I was one of those that, oh my God, it's a popular show. Why am I going to watch it? Like, I don't like that show because it's popular. Because all the shows I always liked weren't popular and they always got canceled. So when I saw this show, that's exactly what I thought. And I was like, oh my God, let me put it on. And I remember, I think the first episode I ever saw, I think it was a season 1 episode, and I kind of had it in the background. It was during the summertime. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm watching this. Like, how dare I watch this? And I finally caught season 2, I think in the middle of it, and I just became obsessed. That was the end of it. I wanted to be Scully at one point. I had her hairdo. And if you look at my senior picture, I have her hairstyle. Shelly, what is up? So, I had no idea that some of the episodes were based on true stories. Always thought it was science fiction. I've always been, even in my belief system, I'm in between. I'm not a Mulder or a Scully. I'm in between them because Scully was more the scientific one, and Mulder was like, yes, I believe it's this. I don't care. I feel like if Mulder went into a haunted house, he'd be like, oh my God, what was that? Because he's that much of a believer. He even tried to, even after everything that Scully saw, she still did not sway between her religion and scientific beliefs. So in 1993, September, I believe it was September 10th of 1993 when the first episode premiered. Television viewers were first introduced to the X-Files, a science fiction drama series created by Chris Carter that centered around FBI agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully as they investigated everything from the paranormal to government conspiracies. Heralded as one of the best shows of the 90s, it spawned 2 feature films, a revival series, a plethora of merchandise, and a made stars out of David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. I was watching an interview recently about David Duchovny, a recent interview, and he was like, I just took it because I thought it wasn't going to last long and I needed a job. So he was definitely wrong when it came to that. While many of the cases that Mulder and Scully investigated were of a fictional nature, some episodes of the series were based on real life stories and myths, from serial killers and kidnappers to circus oddities and experiments gone awry. Let's take a look at some of our favorite episodes of the X-Files that were ripped from the headlines. Bernadette goes, I see you more with the Jessica Rabbit hairstyle. I can't. The problem is, Bernadette, I can't have my hair that long because my hair is super thick. And when it gets past a certain point, I feel like I got a boulder on top of my head. Like, really. I mean, I always say, like, I'm blessed to have, like, a lot of hair, like, thick hair. But at the same time, it's annoying. Kyle goes, I used to have a subscription to X Factor magazine full of aliens and conspiracy theories back in the 90s. Super cool, Kyle. Heather, whatever goes, it's been a long time. I remember doing a birthday party for one of my sons and getting the X-Files movie at Walmart. It seems so very long ago, and it was. It was a long time ago. It seems like yesterday a lot of times. Matthew goes, I really like the X-Cops episode where they are on cops. My favorite one was Humbug, with the freak circus where they had Jim Rose. And then I also liked Humbug, and then I liked Home. Home was that episode where it was banned in some areas because of the subject matter. But I like that one. So the first one on our list is the Ellemeyer Flash season 1 episode 24. This had Deep Throat in it. And she, if you notice too, she was pregnant, and they tried to she was pregnant during this time. And I remember all the shots, except for a few like this one. They had all the shots like above her, from, like mid chest and above to cover that she was pregnant, though you could tell she was regardless because she had the glowing skin. So on February 19th, 1994, Gloria Ramirez was admitted to the emergency room of a Riverside, California hospital with late-stage cervical cancer. As she was being treated, several of the hospital workers fell ill, experiencing shortness of breath, muscle spasms, and some even fainting. 5 of those workers had to be hospitalized themselves, while one spent 2 weeks in intensive care. While the incident had at first been called a case of mass hysteria, it was discovered that Ramirez was self-treating the pain from her cancer with dimethyl sulfoxide, which then converted to dimethyl sulfate in her blood, causing it to become highly carcinogenic. An intriguing story, to say the least, and one that partially inspired Chris Carter to include it in the Ellemeyer's Flask episode of The X-Files. Irresistible, season 2, episode 13. I do remember this episode. It was like this character was crazy. In 1991, the world was captivated by the arrest of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, with lurid details of cannibalism and necrophilia taking center stage on the nightly news. Even more startling are the stories that came to light from those that were under the spell of Dahmer, claiming that the crazed killer actually shapeshifted into a demon while they were being held hostage. That was enough to spark the creativity of Chris Carter, who based the episode Irresistible on those events. While it was one of a handful of episodes to have no paranormal elements in it at the time, the character of Donnie Faster was brought back in season 7 of the show for the episode titled Orson, which retconned the character into an actual demon, making him one of the creepiest villains of the show. He was crazy. Space. Trying to think of which one this one was. Space, season 1, episode 9. You know how when you look at an inanimate object and see a face in it, like those old stories of people seeing Jesus in their toast? Well, it turns out that a real phenomenon called pareidolia, I was just going to say that too, where we perceive sights and sounds and things that aren't there. Perhaps the most popular example of this is the face on Mars photo that everyone has seen, and where shadows cast in the Cydonia region of the red planet appears to show a face looking up at the stars. The phenomenon inspired an episode Space about an astronaut trying to sabotage the shuttle program after seeing something extraterrestrial while in orbit. While it was supposed to be just a low-budget episode thanks to the cost of previous episodes exceeding expectations, Space turned out to be the most expensive one of the first season thanks to the construction of the mission control set piece. The Jersey Devil. This is how I found out about the Jersey Devil. Season 1, episode 5. While the existence of the Jersey Devil is unknown at this point, in 1909, it was all the rage as people reported seeing a kangaroo-like creature with bat wings attacking social clubs, trolley cars, and hunters. Police were even reported to have fired at the creature, but no trace of the monster was ever found. It's an urban legend that spans century and to this day report People report seeing strange things in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. I know I spoke about the Jersey Devil briefly. Thanks to this myth, we were treated to an episode aptly titled The Jersey Devil, which follows Mulder and Scully as they investigate strange reports of cannibalism in the Garden State. This leads them to a woman who seems to be an evolutionary relic, but the ending suggests otherwise. Still, it's an intriguing story based on an even more intriguing legend. Oblite, Season 3, Episode 8. Inspired by the real-life case of Polly Claus in 1993, the episode Oblite, I hope I am pronouncing that correctly, aired in 1995 with chilling similarities to the tragedy that inspired it. 12-year-old Claus was kidnapped from her home in Petaluma, California during a slumber party, held captive, and later strangled. The episode, written by Charles Craig, who had virtually no experience in television, bore a striking resemblance to the Claus case, including facts about her kidnapping, details, and the kidnapper, and even how she was held hostage. While the Polly Claus story ended in agony, Oblette had a happy ending, with the characters of Amy, played by a young Jewel State, being found before she could be unalived. Humbug! Shelly goes, I loved watching the X-Files. Awesome, Shelly. Humbug, which I had said earlier, is one of my favorite episodes. Here's the tattooed puzzled man. That guy is actually real. I always wondered if he was real, and then after I did find out that dude is real. That dude does have all those tattoo pieces, those puzzle pieces tattooed on him. Yeah, I agree, Chris. It was my favorite show till David left. I totally agree with you, because what happened was they brought in what's his face? I forgot his name. They brought in the Terminator in Terminator Part 2. Forgot his name. Patrick. I know it's Patrick. What's his name? Hold on, give me a second, because it's gonna bug me. Robert Patrick. I did not know, guys, if you guys are familiar with Filter. I'm going on a tangent here. Sorry, rabbit hole. Filter. The lead singer. His brother. The lead singer of Filter, if you guys are familiar with Filter, Richard Patrick. He is the brother of Robert Patrick. I had no idea. But, like I was saying, when they brought in Robert Patrick to play Docket, it was like the roles changed. So it was like Scully was now Mulder. She was the believer. And then Docket was like Scully, like where he was kind of like up in the air type of thing. And I did not like that chemistry. Don't get me wrong. He did a great job. It wasn't, I don't know. It just was weird to me, because it was like Scully's now a believer. Like, what the hell? And then they brought in Annabelle Gish, which I liked her in. I loved her in there, but it was just like, it was like the roles were turned, like flipped. And I was like, what the hell? So, Humbug, back to my article. In the mid 1800s, sideshows were all the rage at circus attractions across the country. Eventually, these expeditions became distasteful to the public, with many localities passing laws to forbid them. I did do a previous stream about them. It was kind of more like it gave them a job. I know people were seeing it like, well, they're exhibiting their, their the fact that they're different. And it seems, when you're looking on the outside, it seems like it's bad, but when I was reading the article, it was actually something they took pride in, because it was putting food on the table and shelter for them, because they were making money. So it was kind of like they could make money if doing that, when they couldn't do it somewhere else to provide for their family and for themselves. In 1991, though, a man named Jim Rose developed the Jim Rose Circus. And it's funny, because I do follow Jim Rose on Facebook, and he did mention this episode the other day. And I was like, oh my God, I love that episode. Out of Seattle, working within the boundaries of the law to bring circus oddities to the masses. It toured the Northwest in Canada and even performed at Lollapalooza in 1992. If it was these circus oddities that inspired the episode Humbug, with some of them from Jim Rose's sideshow even starring in the episode, written by Darren Morgan, who was amazing, who also portrayed the infamous Fluke Man in a previous episode. Humbug turned out to be one of the more comedic episodes of The X-Files and was praised for its theme of prejudice and diversity. Blood, Season 2, Episode 3. The episode titled Blood is an interesting one in The X-Files history, as it was not inspired just one event, but 3 real-life occurrences. Writer Glenn Morgan, who was another amazing writer, owns struggles with hematophobia, spraying crops with the insecticide malathion, and the true story of Charles Whitman, a mass shooter out of Texas in the 60s. The episode also deals with our fears of technology as Mulder and Scully investigate a series of murders in which the suspects all saw violent messages on various electronics devices as pictured above. Blood was well received by audiences and critics alike, and in 1996, the plot of the episode was even adapted into a young adult novel tie-in called Fear by author Les Martin. It should also be noted that Blood featured just the second appearance of the Lone Gunmen. Oh my god, I love the Lone Gunmen, a trio of conspiracy theorists that would eventually get their own spin-off show. Dwayne Barry, Season 2, Episode 5. Imagine your head being impaled by an iron rod, destroying much of your frontal lobe and living to tell the story. Well, in 1848, that's exactly what happened to a railroad supervisor, Phineas Gage. We took a 3-foot-long tamping iron to the skull during a blasting accident. Though he survived, Gage was never the same, with his friends noticing complete personality and behavioral changes in the man. It was the story that inspired the episode of Dwayne Barry about an escaped psychiatric patient who claims he was being abducted by aliens and takes a bunch of hostages to prove his point. Barry, as it turns out, was pew-pewed in the head years earlier, survived, and as such went through a complete personality change. It just wouldn't be The X-Files without an extraterrestrial riff on the story, though, as it also discovered that he has a weird implant in his head that makes grocery store checkout scanners go crazy. No, Bernadette, that was not the sideshow that was on Venice Beach. It was another one that they're no longer there, but I used to watch them. And I still kind of follow one of the daughters, but it's not he's different. Jim Rose is different from the Venice Beach Freak show, I think is what it was called. .com Season 2, Episode 19. The Philadelphia Experience is widely known story about the I didn't know that was based on the Philadelphia experiment is a widely known story about the U.S. Navy experimenting with invisibility, with claims that they actually made the USS Eldridge disappear for a few minutes with disastrous results. This included a crew member suffering from insanity, intangibility, and some even becoming fused with the ship itself upon the reappearance. There were indications that the ship didn't just disappear, but traveled through time itself. While these accounts have been largely debunked, it's a fascinating story nonetheless and inspired the episode of .com. That is about the time I came in. I remember .com. Season 2. Yeah, that's about the time I came in and I became obsessed. In 1995, despite receiving mixed reviews, it's one of those episodes that gave Mulder and Scully some alone time, allowing them the chance to bond even further as friends who would eventually become lovers. And the number one, yeah, because I remember throughout the entire X-Files, their chemistry was like super strong, and it's funny because they hated each other in real life. But now, I think now they're friends. But during the time, they weren't friends at all, so it's kind of hilarious. And I remember watching the characters, and everyone at that time wanted them to kiss. And there was always like close calls, and it would cut off or something. And finally, I think in the movie was when they finally did. Home, Season 4, Episode 2. This is one of my favorite episodes. Also, it was banned in some countries and some areas because of the subject matter, because it did involve inbreeding. Perhaps the most disturbing episode of The X-Files ever to air is Home was based on the real life story of the Ward brothers, four barely literate family members that lived together outside Syracuse, New York. When one of the brothers was put on trial for killing his siblings, stories of familial relationships and mercy killings came to light. While he was eventually acquitted, it's a story that captivated the imagination and was featured in the 1992 documentary film Brothers Keeper. While it remains one of the most memorable episodes in the history of the X-Files, the network at the time thought it was too brutal and decided not to feature it in any reruns of the show. To this day, it is one of the most frightening and disturbing things to ever be seen on network television. And those are the 10 X-Files episodes that were based on real life or inspired by real life events. Which was crazy because I had no idea that they were true events. I was just like sci-fi, X-Files, aliens, ghosts, paranormal. I just liked it. I thought it was cool. I want to give a shout out to Heather whatever for the PayPal. Hearts for Heather whatever. Thank you, Heather whatever. I appreciate it. And thank you for your message. Oh, Shelly wants to know what the first one of the X-Files one? The first article I talked about, in general of the stream, I talked about terror. If you're just coming in right now, or came in late, I talked about Terrifier 3 is going to streaming probably around November 26th. I also mentioned the Axeman, who was who murdered people, who was a serial killer in New Orleans around the 1910s. He would unalive people with their own axes, hence the name Axeman. He was never found. There's people that speculated who he was, but he was never discovered. And he was able to get an entire town to play jazz for one night to prevent any more killings. And then I also talked about the history of the final girl as well. It was with the X-Files one, it was the Erlenmeyer flask. I know I'm saying that wrong. Irresistible, the episode Space, the Jersey Devil, Oblique, Humbug, Blood, Dwayne Barry, and .com and Home. So, I found this article and it kind of brought me back to that woman that said her ghost husband was cheating on her with Marilyn Monroe. So I found this article. Marilyn Monroe's ghost rumors, screen legend haunts Hollywood hotel. I think I've talked about her before. I believe she's known to haunt the Roosevelt Hotel, which is in Hollywood. It's right down the street. It's literally across the street almost from the Chinese theater. Across the street and down a bit. Marilyn Monroe passed away at the age of 36 under suspicious circumstances. She was a beautiful woman. Marilyn Monroe seemed to be black as a ghost. Rumors have gone viral that the spirit or ghost of the late Hollywood icon Marilyn Monroe may be haunting the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, where she reportedly lived for 2 years at the beginning of her career. She's also known to haunt other places too, so her ghost travels. Monroe, who was famous for her roles in films like Some Like It Hot, died in 1962 at the age of only 36 under circumstances that remain a mystery to this day. Over the years, guests have reported spotting her presence in the hotel, including musician Brocard. Oh my God, they mentioned her in this article. She is the woman that married the ghost, who recently shared her own experience on Instagram. So many psychic mediums have told me that the Roosevelt Hotel is charged with paranormal energy, she posted, adding to the intrigue surrounding the legendary star's haunting rumors. She added, I don't know why they're talking to her, but she is the one that married a ghost, Eduardo, and she says that Eduardo cheated on her with Marilyn Monroe, for those that don't know who Brocard is. She added, I've heard multiple reports of psychics seeing the apparition of Marilyn over the years, but I thought seeing her was unlikely, so I was quite bemused when I did. She now claims that because of this encounter, she has special ability, so now she goes to places and ghost hunts. She's kind of like a paranormal activity, if I'm a paranormal investigator, if I'm not mistaken. Nothing surprises me anymore. She continued, I think realistically, when you're somewhere with as much Hollywood history as the Roosevelt, you are more likely to encounter the spirit of a celebrity than a human. This was home to many huge stars. It reported that Marilyn lived in the hotel for 2 years, and the hotel hosted the first ever Oscars ceremony, so many have seen her hanging around the Blossom Ballroom. I went there once. It was for an after party. It was in the pool area. It was for an after party for a Netflix thing. But obviously there was a lot of people there, so there's no way you're going to be able to really experience anything during something like that. But I honestly, even like walking through the building, I really didn't feel anything. But again, there was a lot of people when I went. Marilyn Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortison in Los Angeles in 1926, faced a challenging start in life, spending her childhood moving through a dozen foster homes and an orphanage. At just 16, she married James Doherty, seeking stability. I know I butchered that. Amid an uncertain upbringing, Monroe passed away tragically on August 4th of 1962 when she was found at her Los Angeles home having died from an overdose of barbiturates. Authorities ruled her death as a probable S, though questions about the circumstances lingered to this day. And I guess that's it. But she is known to haunt. She is a ghost that gets everywhere. She's known to haunt everywhere, not just that hotel. But most, when I do read about the Roosevelt Hotel, she is mentioned. It's sad how she was only 36. Bernadette goes, fact, did you know Marilyn Monroe claimed to be Hispanic or Mexican? She was born in Mexico and always claimed and supported the Mexican culture. Look it up. Love her. Heather, whatever. This is where I say that she's known to haunt a lot of places. Heather, whatever goes, she's also said to haunt the Cal Neva Hotel in North Tahoe. They say she sings here or there. Dusty goes, what's up, Dusty? Those pesky time chains, I cannot stand them. I thought we voted those out like 2 years ago. I don't know what. Because it's annoying. I wish we would be like Arizona and just, now we have an hour time difference from Arizona. I wish we were like Arizona where we don't have to do it at all. I really wish, because it messed me up. Leonore goes, yeah, the Hollywood Hotel mirror. Wendy goes, Lisa, I'm so scared I will have a spirit attached to me. Wendy, you will not. I think you're a strong woman, and I don't think that would ever happen to you. Just make sure you sage, Wendy. Sage, where I've also heard obsidian helped. Well, that's against psychic attacks. Obsidians is for psychic attacks, but I do have obsidian on my necklace. But I think that's more for psychic attacks. But there are stones that you can wear that will prevent. Dusty goes, she was a product of Hollywood. We don't change time here either. Oh, Dusty doesn't change time. What? Nerd Report goes on June 1st of 1926 in Los Angeles, California. The only clock that doesn't update for me is my car, but everything else updates. Oh, and then I have another clock that's like in 24-hour time. That was my dad's. That doesn't update by itself because it's old. But everything else does. All right, guys, I have one more article and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Dusty goes, Hawaii is 2-hour difference from the West Coast now. And then Dusty in the summertime were 3, right? Dang, that's crazy. But with Matt, before I get into my next article, do you guys think Marilyn Monroe's death was caused by an OD, or do you think it was something sinister, like something behind it? Like it wasn't an accidental OD, or I don't think they consider it an accidental. I think they considered an actual. Beth Bearclaw thinks it was murder. Heather, whatever goes, it's a Kennedy connection. I've always thought of that. I've always, I mean, obviously, what they say, what passed away because of an OD, but I've always wondered if there's something more sinister to it. Leonard goes, Marilyn Monroe is very sus. I know this story. Dusty, I'm glad you made it. Bernadette believes she was murdered with what she knew. Shelley goes, very sus. Yeah, I think I don't think she passed away from what they're telling us. I think there's something. I think something was connected to it. Like someone was against her and made it look like that was what happened. Heather, whatever goes, she threatened to talk about what she knew. Lisa Boo believes that she was unalived. Wendy goes, I don't know enough, but I think she was controlled and manipulated. Shelley goes, the government used to do stuff like that. Ooh. That is very sus. Bernadette thinks MJ and Prince were also murdered. I don't think so. I don't think with MJ, I don't think so. I don't know. With them, I never thought. But with Marilyn Monroe, I always questioned. Because I feel like I mean, well, when they passed away, though, the technology and the techniques weren't as advanced as they are now. Because I would think now, definitely, you'd be able to rule. I don't think you could get away with something like that now. Shelley goes, look up the movie Who Big Boomed Judy Berry. Ooh. I will have to check that out. Lisa Boo goes, the connections with Kennedy. Dusty also said she was connected with the Kennedys. Ooh. Nerd Report goes, Marilyn Monroe was not born in Mexico. Her mom was. Because Marilyn Monroe, she was a brunette, if I'm not mistaken. She was not blonde. Yeah, Monroe was born here, like Nerd Report said, on June 1st, 1926. She is buried at the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. She was married 3 times and divorced 3 times. Her father was born in, her mother, like Nerd Report said, was born in Mexico. Nerd Report goes, I mean, many Mexicans are blonde. Lisa Bugo, she was raised in an orphanage. Chris Barber goes redhead. Heather Whatever goes Sinatra helped get Kennedy get elected. Lisa Bugo, she used to look out the window at the studio tower and say, someday I will work there. Bernadicco, she was concaved then at Nerd Report, but she always said she always was Mexican descent. She did say it in an interview. Heather Whatever goes Nerd Report, many relocated from Germany to Mexico during the war. I actually saw the bio for her mother, Gladys Pearl Monroe, and it says she was born in Mexico. Pedras Negras. I'm gonna butcher this. Coahuila, Mexico. She was born at Black Rocks, Coahuila, Mexico. I know I'm butchering that. I do apologize that. But no, she was born in Mexico. Shelley goes, Sinatra had his goons? Leonore goes, many in that movie era, many women were blonde. I did notice that, Leonore. Nerd Report, Joaquin Phoenix was born in Puerto Rico, and he's Puerto Rican. But Marilyn Monroe was a Los Angeles native. All right, guys, I am going to I'm going to save that article for next time. I'm going to open it up for questions. Guys, if you have any questions, I'll also give you a few minutes to look for Skeleduck. Just remind me if I don't say where he is at the end of the stream. I shouldn't forget, but just in case. Bernie Dicko's whatever nowadays. We are all mutts, so many different backgrounds. Heather Whatever goes, she was in the first Playboy magazine. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Leonor goes, here, pato, pato, here, pato. Dusty has found the duck. Heather, whatever goes, I love all the heritages that have come together in my family. We all honor them all. Bernadette sees the pinche duck finally. Shelly, thank you for your super chat, spreading the love hearts for Shelly, guys. Thank you, Shelly. I really appreciate that. You're awesome. Hearts for Shelly, guys. Thank you, Shelly. If I could do hold on. I'm still trying to perfect it. Thank you, Shelly. And everyone who has donated today. Thank you. Carol, if you ever want to find something, guys, get Carol. She is the most observant person I know. I don't think anything can ever get past Carol. She is amazing when it comes to finding things. She is like dead on. Dusty goes, my grandkids are Irish, Dutch, French, Japanese, Hawaiian, and Portuguese. That is a cool mix, Dusty. I'm Korean. I don't know. I might be more than what I'm thinking I am, but off the top of my head, I know I'm Korean, Irish, and probably English because my last name's English. But I could be more for all I know. I've always wanted to take one of those ancestry things to see what else. Because I'm sure I probably have some other mix that I had no idea I had in me. But like, really? It's just some of those tests are sometimes expensive unless you go. Sometimes they do go on sale. Sometimes. Oh, that right there is Michael Myers as a kid. It's a bobblehead. It's young Michael Myers. Bernadette goes, no, on the side of the mask. The nuke the fridge thing? That one? Or the alien? Oh, that. Oh, I know what you're talking. Yeah, Bernadette, I see it. It's a lamp or something. I don't know what the hell that is. Oh, it's like one of those fog lamps that you attach. It's supposed to have one of those silver hoods, but it doesn't. Well, yeah, that could be mistaken. All right, guys, Skeleduck. He's gonna be on my right hand side, probably your left hand side. He is over visiting with. Hold on, because I'm trying to go reach over where he is. He is right. He's cuddling up with ET. So you could barely see his beak sticking out by the S of Superman. So he's right there where my finger, I can't exact there. He's right there where my finger's pointed. So he's right behind ET. Right there. He kind of blends in with the S on Superman. Right where my finger's pointed. Heather, whatever goes like E.T. hiding in the movie. Shelly's like, oh, I see him. Wendy's like, dang. Leonora's pato, 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 and super soda pop. Yeah, Carol, next to the symbol of Superman, like he's right in front of it. Spargo's good hide. I didn't see him. Bernadette's like, son of a. I thought it was down below Ghostbusters poster. Jennifer Murray, what is up? All right, guys. Unfortunately, Jennifer Murray, you made it to the end of the stream. But if you guys don't have any more questions, any last minute questions before I end the stream? All right, Jennifer Marie. All right, guys, if there's no further questions, I am going to end the stream here. I will see you on the next one, which will be Thursday. I'll try to make it at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I may be a little late, guys, so just hang tight on Thursday. But I will still stream, so I will see you then. Again, that's going to be Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be there, be squared, stay spooky, guys, and sweet nightmares, and you have a great rest of your week. Good night, guys, and thank you. You guys are awesome.